Today at Manchester Theatres, it is my pleasure to be joined by Dan Wolff, who is currently touring with the multi-award winning and critically acclaimed musical Fiddler on the Roof, coming to the Palace Theatre from the 21st of October. Now, Dan has appeared across stage and screen in shows such as Land of the Free, The Ark, a trilogy of Jewish plays, Lockerbie, Search for the Truth, and so many others as well. So we were the lucky ones. But today it is all about the epic show that is Fiddler on the Roof. So Dan, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because it's actually a musical that somehow has escaped me. I've never actually seen this show. So can you tell me a little bit about the story and what to expect?
Yeah, absolutely. Fiddler on the Roof is it's an epic story full of lovely songs, great dancing. It all centers around a milkman called Tevye in the village of Anatevka. Tevye is attempting to kind of keep his Jewish traditions going in this tight-knit community, and particularly within his family, where he has the three eldest daughters, who is getting to the time where they're starting to be married off, and traditionally that would be arranged by a matchmaker in the village, who is called Yenta. And as it happens, each of the three daughters throughout the show, we kind of meet them and their resistance against the matchmaker and the tradition of arranging a marriage, and how each of them in their own way kind of want to find marriage for love, which is very much a new idea in 1905 in Anatevka.
And talk to us about your character because you play one of these daughters intended, don't you? So tell us a little bit about your character.
Yeah, I play the role of Mottel Kamzoil, who is a tailor in the village. He's a very hardworking tailor. He's very dedicated to his work, but he's very poor. And as a prospect for marriage, he's not a great one. Generally, marriage is arranged kind of for money. And Mottel is he's quite shy, he's quite diffident, and he is in love with the eldest daughter, Zeitel. And it's kind of Mottel's job to sort of pluck up the courage to ask Tevye for permission to marry Zeitel, going over the head of the matchmaker.
And yeah, yours, he kind of agrees, doesn't he? So you do challenge the, like you've said, this kind of tradition and honor and all of these things. And your marriage does get the blessing of Tevye. So what do you think it is about your love situation that you win him over?
Well, sort of without giving too much away, I think there comes a point in the show where Mottel kind of stands up for himself for the first time in his life, basically. He's met with the same sort of resistance of kind of you're worthless, you're nothing, you've got no money, you're never gonna be married to her. It's a terrible idea. Your black tradition, blah blah blah. And he actually stands up for himself for the first time. And I think in that moment, Tevye actually goes, "Oh, hang on a second. Um, this is a guy who really believes in what he wants, and he has had the courage to stand up for himself. And I think that makes him a more appealing prospect. And in that moment, Tevye decides, yeah, okay, we'll make this work.
And it's a really important character in that sense, isn't it? Because you've got this character who, like you say, doesn't necessarily have the confidence and the bravado, but that doesn't equate to quality and not being good enough and things like that. So I think for people coming to watch it, it's such an important message, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really nice sort of a really nice arc within the story, because we've all had those days or those moments where we felt like we're not good enough, or we can't we haven't got that sort of self-worth or self-esteem. But there's something within him that we all have somewhere, where we can find that sort of we can look at ourselves in the mirror and go, no, actually I am good enough, and I am going to stand up for myself, because I believe in this, and it's for love. um and it is quite an important moment, because out of the three daughters, this is the first one, this is the first marriage that's to be arranged. And again, without giving away too much, we sort of get a bit of a domino effect. So it's kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, in a way, that without this first moment of rebellion, um, we might not get the others that come in the show. So it's a really nice it's a really nice moment, and really important within the piece.
And I think it's really interesting to see, you know, like you say, these traditions, these honors of various cultures. And I just wonder what a lot of young people today watching it would kind of make of this idea of matchmaking and things like that. Because it is a very far cry from swiping right, isn't it?
It is, but the wonderful thing about the show, and I think why it's so relatable and universal and is still being put on, over 60, 70 years since it was written, um, is that we still have kind of this battle between, well, the generations of tradition, of the things that my parents' generation did when they were younger, and I'm in my mid to late 20s now, and I can already feel that as I'm growing up there are things that I have a younger sister who is she's 19 now, and there are things in her generation that are differing, and it will keep on happening. And that this, yes, it's about a matchmaker, which feels quite far away, but there are certain things about growing up and facing your parents' generation and saying, actually, no, we're going to try something slightly different here, and that the world is changing, and that we're finding new ways to communicate and talk to each other and reach out to each other. I mean, in this story, it's essentially about Jews and non-Jews. So it's about kind of the Russian villages outside of the Jewish circle, but it applies across so many different aspects of society. And yeah, that's why I think it does so well still today.
Yeah. And without giving too much away, when I was reading up on the story to kind of obviously to do this chat with you, and I got to a section and it was talking about all these a dream with different ancestors, and they was kind of saying who should be marrying who. So without giving too much away, what was that? Because I was reading it and not quite making sense of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can explain this without it sounding absolutely ridiculous. Because even when you watch it, you just sort of go, "What on earth's happening here?" Essentially, um, it's called the dream sequence, and it's right after Tevye has given Motul his permission for Motul and Seitel to marry, and Tevye has to find out a way of breaking the news to his wife Golda, because Golda's very much in on a different arrangement, which is that Saitel's going to marry a different man, a much older man who's a butcher in the village, who's not a great match, but he's very wealthy. So that's the kind of match that the family want, and Tevye has to kind of find a way of broaching this with his wife Golda, and he comes up with this elaborate plan of pretending that he's just had a nightmare, where the ancestors of the family come to him and tell him that Motul has to marry Seitel, and it culminates in this insane sequence of dance, smoke, lighting, amazing costume, amazing. Yeah, I won't give away too much. I don't think I could say anything anyway because it's just so utterly ridiculous. But it's real, and people come away, and that is sort of one of the highlights, if not
Yeah.
the best thing about the show. It's so well done, and you
Yeah.
have to see it to believe it. To be honest.
But that's the joy of this show. You know, you've got, like you've just said, it's just so much fun and crazy and all of this. And then, as you've kind of already hinted at, there's this abuse of power that comes within it when, you know, the Jewish community are just attacked. I mean, that must make it hit harder because you've got the light and the shade.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's so good, because it keeps you laughing throughout, and then suddenly it pulls the rug from under your feet, and it's just the most heartbreaking and tragic story. It's I mean it's actually quite depressing because it ends. It's quite dark, and as it's about a community who are kicked out from their homes. It's extremely prescient. I think it's always going to be prescient whenever it's put on, because that's the nature of the world and that's the nature of art within the world. But it feels extremely important to be telling the story, and to be it's sadly relevant. And what's so good about it is that it does keep you laughing throughout, and it's a very Jewish way of dealing with traumatic events and with kind of yeah, with sad moments that we there is so much humor within it. So it's yeah, it's such a beautifully created world. It's so three-dimensional, and it's sadly so so relevant.
And I may not have seen the show, but the music, of course, has not escaped me. I mean, this music, I mean, songs immediately. If I Were a Rich Man, Matchmaker, Matchmaker, Sunrise, Sunset, all completely different to each other, yet so interwoven into the musical, but stand alone as well. I mean, it's no wonder that this show is so well received.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the music is the thing, really, that it holds it all together, and it's kind of, it is so well known, and it's so universal. But within the show, it doesn't feel as if you're kind of watching a jukebox musical. It doesn't feel as if you're watching a show where sort of these well-known hits are kind of chiseled in and you're just waiting for the next song to come. It's like each song is such a beautiful part of the story, and they're done really well. The lyrics are just brilliant, and you'll be humming them probably for months afterwards because they are so catchy. Sunrise Sunset is a song that's performed sort of right at the end of Act One, which is in this huge wedding in the show, and it's something like in the real world, it's like the most sung song at weddings, or the most played songs, you know, Jewish weddings or not, like it's the most popular song. That's just, and it's just a testament to how well it's written.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, once you hear them, they're such earworm songs that they stay with you. Now, you mentioned that your character is a tailor and he saves up to buy himself this sewing machine so that he can provide for his family and things like that. So if sort of art mimicked the real world and you had to kind of sew for your life to feed yourself, how would you fare? Would you be starving, or would you be okay?
I wouldn't stand a chance. I would not stand a chance. I mean, yeah, I like to think I'm quite artistic and quite creative generally in the sense, but in terms of like anything to do with my hands, anything to do with making things, I'm absolutely useless. I remember when we were at school and we got into the sort of part of the textiles project where we started using sewing machines, and I think within about 5 minutes I'd already cut up most of my hand and my fingers, and I said, this isn't for me.
So you're tied to the whatever you're making kind of
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so Mottle, despite being quite poor and not having a lot, he's much better. He's much better with the sewing machine, thankfully.
Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, we cannot wait for Fiddler on the Roof to come to the Palace Theatre in Manchester. As we've said, it's from the 21st of October, and tickets for this one will sell. So grab yourself one while you still can. And we will see you there. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you. Can't wait to be
Thank
there.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Tradition, tradition, tradition.